welcome you. This is going to be our first episode of the new year in Raw and Real. And everybody say hi to Leah. Hi, Leah. And I'm Kim Johnson. This is Leah Laker, and we are Raw and Real. And today we're going to be talking about whatever. We're going to talk about, when I say whatever, I kind of made it a lot of fun, but the thing is, we get on a lot of rabbit trails, but we really want to talk about belief systems today because we're encountering on the political stage a clash of values, a clash of values, a clash of belief systems. Or ideological trends, or, we can just kind of go on and on about how we would want to phrase this. But we are definitely, people think, you can have cultural clashes, between the Western world and, let's say, the Arab world. These are very different belief systems, and you can have cultural clashes this way. However, within America right now, and even in some ways in Israel, but we're going to use Israel more of a base of centering everything. But definitely right now in America and throughout the world, we are seeing a clash of belief systems, or I think I even want to take that a little more specific, values. And how values are maybe, I don't want to say so much integrated, but how they formulate belief systems. And so we're going to go down that rabbit hole today and talk about that in light of this week's Torah portion, in light of our experiences. And we want to try and help you, our audience, navigate what you are potentially dealing with in the political world, or personally and collectively struggling with the changing of the guard or the presidency, and having your own belief in God's justice and righteousness shaken because of what's being allowed. So we're going to talk about those things. Is that all right with you, Leah, if we kind of go down that rabbit hole? Now I can't hear you.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wondered before we get too deep into the rabbit hole, one thing we didn't talk about previously with our conversation, but I kind of like to bring it up, and that's Huntington in his Clash of Civilizations, and Bernard Lewis in particular, who took that further, talked about the vast difference in societies in how they treat their women and children, but in how they treat their women, and that the great failure of the Muslim society has been in their failure to address that, to treat their women as partners, as equals, and to give them the rights that the men enjoy. Whereas Judaism and Western civilization has indeed, it's gone through a long, slow process to evolve, but women do have rights and women do have respect. And I hope we don't get into this transgender thing where, women take a back role again because you just, I don't know, you're nothing at all. You're whatever you choose to be. But it is really important, because without even getting into the religious and tradition heritage aspect, if you look at other countries and how they treat their women.
Right, keep going. I wanted to get a pad and paper because I wanted to take a couple notes. I got that ready.
There is a great divide, absolutely, between the West and the East.
And between it's true. However, I question some areas of this line of argument, because what we have also seen the West cultivate is what I call a man-hating spirit among the women. We have seen that this, and let me even, before I even say that, the West has also cultivated what we're now seeing, not only in the transgender arena, but it's cultivated the complete and total breakdown of the family unit, because it has inoculated, all right, a belief system of equality that is not true. Men and women were created to be partners.
Yes.
They were created as a unified entity. Originally, Adam was androgynous, male and female. When God separated that, he never intended women to be men and men to be women, but collectively together. He intended to demonstrate his power and his wisdom, his intuition, his ability to, as a unit, to raise a family with moral equity, with values, with respect, with honor of both roles. And collectively, I think the West has destroyed the family unit by repositioning the role of the woman.
I don't think that's the whole West, though. That's particularly the socialist movement and the progressives, because I don't know if you have ever read Mark Steyn. Mark Steyn was a so-called Canadian conservative writer, but he lives in New Hampshire now. But he's still a very well-respected conservative, and he wrote about how demographics are going to change our entire future, and part of that was exactly what you're saying about the breakdown of the family, the importance of me or the individual, and the breakdown of the family unit. But he also pointed out that the American, particularly the Midwest, with the religious conservatives, the fundamentalists, they were still having children, whereas the progressives and socialists of urban centers had sort of walked away from that or had delayed it for a long period of time. So besides Israel, and I guess also are some of our neighbors who have a lot of children, but that could be changing as well, that it's more the ideological basis of socialism and the emphasis on the not on the family, but on the state and how you work and how you contribute to the state that will really change our world. It's beginning to do that already.
That was an excellent comment. And so we saw this. I mean, we saw this in Germany. This is, happening the 1800s, late 1800s into the 1900s, giving rise to Hitler. This is really Hegelism. Hegel's doctrine, which was a Protestant. He was a Protestant theologian, but Hegel adopted this idea of the state being God's entity in the earth, the state itself. So no longer could God move fluidly through institutions or through individuals. All right. He was now taken from the role of relationship and placed into the state through Hegel. And so he actually, and I'm quoting Hegel right now, he says, the state is God's march, all right, through the earth. So we see that this whole concept of replacing God, and this is what it is. It's replacing God with the state, all right? Yes, this is a very strong ideology. And what is important for and I don't want to, I want to kind of stay away from the word personally. I want to stay away from the word religious, because I'm watching what we call the progressive left, all right, or the ideology of the left, use the word religion as automatically putting people into not a camp of the right. And by the way, right means right. I thought about this long and hard before I said it today. And I knew I was going to say it somewhere in this statement, because people think right now is terrorism. They're trying to create this echo chamber of propaganda to put everything that is conservative or right into the camp of terrorism, right? All right. However, right truly means right. Righteousness, the word righteousness means that a person has a conscience that knows the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, holy, profane, evil, all right, and good. So,
You know where those terms actually started or became popular? It was in the British Parliament, the British House of Commons, that those who were traditional and conservative in their values and believed that you look back through history and you took your example of how people should live and the things that they should honor, the values that they had were firmly rooted in our collective nature as human beings, and they were conservative. They would sit on the right. And those who believed that in the more socialist, in the idea that we could make change and be liberal and decide for ourselves, coming out of the Enlightenment, they sat on the left. So that's where the term for the parties, the right and the left, came about.
That is, I did not know that. And that is very, very cool, and very different, what you just shared, a very different perspective of right and left than we are now seeing cultivated under the new administration of the Bidens. So, anyways, you were talking about children and demographics and what Mark Stein was saying as well regarding the family unit. And how within these religious institutions, you still see the role modeling of what biblically is the kind of relationship between a man and a woman that God ordained from the beginning. And I absolutely agree with that. When people start to study the Torah, they start to come to know God. You find that it becomes I have to rephrase my thinking because I can't go where I want to go with that line. But what begins to happen is that they begin to find value in who they are. And when you see how valuable you are as a woman or as a man, the way that God created you, He created you and gave you gifts, abundant, internal, intrinsic abilities and gifts to match the gender that you were born into. And so when you start to see the value of that, all of a sudden creating a relationship that becomes a partnership, right? Like you and David have. I mean, you two are partners. It's absolutely amazing what the two of you accomplish and how well you flow together. And this is what a relationship is. This is what God intended. And it really does take, and I'm going to throw that out there to see if you, what you feel. But my particular view, it takes the Torah, it takes the scriptures, it takes knowing what God's purpose for men and women were in the beginning to come back home to the way it's ordained to be.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was talking to the Anglo Seniors Club. We were having our pre-presentation discussion this week, and I think I shocked a few people because I said that COVID had brought us some benefits as well as, you know, total disaster in some areas. But it's definitely, as I see it, has brought us some benefits. And one of those is the coming together again of the family. For one thing, parents are now, they're learning more about their children because they're spending more time with them. They're being involved in their education because they have to be. They have to do something with the time, but they have the pleasure of seeing their children as not these little beings that they shove out the door in the morning and off to school, and then they have their activities and so on, and they may sit around the dinner table for Shabbat, but that's probably the only time. Instead, parents are getting to know their children, they're interacting with them. The parents themselves are learning that they don't have to be on the 9-to-5 treadmill, that they can do work from home, that they can rearrange their hours, and the world isn't going to fall in. I mean, it may not be too comfortable if you're into buying stuff and taking vacations and doing all that kind of thing and having all the extras. But the world, our world, can actually have benefits by this period where we are learning to rebuild our family ties. We miss our extended families, just as we miss our friends, and that tells us what the values really should be. And we found new ways to communicate so we can at least keep in touch. But I think it's made us much more cognizant of what humanity is supposed to be about. It's not about little pegs that run around and plug in here and there and have all kinds of exciting things to do to fill the time. It's about relationship, and particularly the family. And we're back there. We're just relearning that.
I think that's a very, very good point. And if you see me looking down, folks, I'm just checking on our Facebook Live. Okay, I am absolutely listening to what Leah is saying. All right, let's see. I think we're done with that. All right. Yes, COVID has done that. And it's forced. It really has. And I think God intended as part of that, because the family unit was strained to such a degree. It's really forced family to really start operating within its role. And I wanted to say something that you just brought out. We've actually brought it out when we're talking about ideological beliefs. Okay, where did I put the book? The thing is, I just had that book. I actually there it is. I know, because I had it right on my chair so I wouldn't lose it. So I wanted to read something from Parshat Bo that Rabbi Sachs wrote in his book Lessons for Leadership. And the reason I want to actually bring this out right now is because I think to navigate belief systems and what we're dealing with, and I actually wrote on some piece of paper this week. Oh, I wrote it. That people are talking about. Hold on, everybody. I got to get it. I wrote it down. All right. I'm pretty sure I wrote it in here in my planners, so it shouldn't be far away. Here we go. All right. So, we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking a lot about Marxism, belief systems, and communism, of course, between Russia and all this between China and Russia, and communism and Marxism and Nazism is rising, and we're talking about even in Judaism and Christianity and all these belief systems. But what I really see rising is something that explains why organizations and groups that carry Marxist beliefs, communist beliefs, Alinsky's beliefs, Nietzschean beliefs, all right? Let's see, who else can I put? Nazism, we already mentioned that, and more.
The Enlightenment absolutely took God out of the equation.
Yes, the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment started to cultivate. I think. I got. Hold on, that was such a great point she made. Now I have to say something about it. One of the most interesting things is why the Enlightenment happened. And it is because the church in Europe was prohibiting not only personal growth, but societal growth. Yeah. It was prohibiting innovation. And you can never, ever stop men and women from thinking. And you cannot stop the blessings of God from depositing. And when God wants something to come forth, he puts the idea in the hearts of men and women. And the church was stopping science. It was stopping medicine. It was stopping history. It was stopping academic growth. And all of these prohibitions created the Enlightenment. Because the people said, I am leaving the church because I see that the earth is round and not flat. And somebody has to go down the rabbit hole of physics and chemistry. Somebody has to create I know this is much later, but the point is taken, the vaccine for polio. Someone has to create the light bulb. Someone, and all these ideas, you see, God has already orchestrated innovation. It's who he is. And the church kept knowledge from the people, biblical knowledge and existential knowledge for existence. And because of that, you had this split. And so the problem now is that man has become so haughty and so proud to think that any of these ideas came from any place else but the Creator. And now we are fighting something that is a thread that binds all of these belief systems together that exist outside of God. And what I wrote down this week was what I am going to call, and I'm going to share this with Leah here, it's the first time her hearing it, but a nihilistic value system. that is a value system without God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think nihilism, Nietzsche saw that nihilism would be the driving force of the 20th century and beyond. And I think not only is that it's a driving force. And for those of you that don't know what nihilism is, it means a void of God, the absence of God, all right, or removing God from the picture. But nihilism also has a value system. And I think this is what's important to discuss, because the value system without God allows for all of the tentacles of self preservation, discovery, perversion that are really highlighted in the Bible or in the Torah, because in the Torah means the instructions of God, right? So in the Torah, God says, this is the antithesis of who I am. I am not a God of slavery. I don't enslave you to the idols and idolatries of this world. I've come to set you free. And every value system without God, a nihilistic value system okays human trafficking. It okays sexual slavery. It approves of the destruction of the family. It approves of any aberration of even killing children and using that child's placebo, however you want to say it, using collagen, using stem cells, using to further strains of superpower humans, right? It's okay with murder as long as it's serving its cause. All the things that God says will damage society, a nihilistic value system says, it's okay. It's okay to kill all the Jews. It's okay to destroy, all the children. It's okay. It's okay. We're all right with it. So, so that is when we're talking about belief systems. I think I'm clumping all of these anti-God belief systems into this thought of a nihilistic value system.
Yeah, you're right.
And so that brings us back to what I was going to say about sex. It was all you and the Enlightenment. That's how that got started there, Leah. All right. I want to really, really just kind of hone in. If you'll just, Leah, if it's okay, would you like to say something? Because I just spoke like so much, and now I'm going to talk about Rabbi Sachs. I want you to say something in between.
Okay. Well, that was a fine exposition of the whole idea of nihilism. When I mentioned the Enlightenment too, it was right after that with Napoleon that he granted citizenship for the first time to Jews, and the whole idea that you are a citizen of the state. Up until that time, the Jews, yes, they had lived in ghettos and they had been held back from participating in certain societal things and achieving and all that, but they had special societies which looked after each other. They had someone in charge and they collected funds, and those funds were turned over to the leadership to take care of the people. They were related, they were close. They did all those good things that we call social justice within the communities. Once this whole idea of emancipation and you are a citizen of the state took hold, it disappeared. That was a huge
You know, that that leads us again. That what you just said is so. I hope everyone heard that, because emancipation is a real interesting subject here, and we find that Jewish emancipation was. I hope I don't get stoned when I say this. But Jewish emancipation was like a two-edged sword.
Absolutely.
Because, wow, there are, not just is, there are cultivated ideologies within Jewish life and Judaism that are cultivated on very profound Torah principles, all right? The Torah is extremely cultivated within the Jewish community, even at the time of the Enlightenment and the Emancipation. And so we have to understand, though, that the Torah principles of freedoms, when taken from the community and placed into the world, can become very dangerous, because you are putting them in the hands or into the hearts and minds of people that don't know the Torah. They don't know how God thinks. And so they will, like social justice. Social justice is God's idea. But when you put God's idea in the hands of people that don't know or do not want to know God, it becomes its own religion, and it lacks the moral equity and borders that exist in the Torah. And, you know, Alexander the Great, emancipation came on the heels of his reign in the late 1700s, or early 1800s. And then came the Declaration. In France came the Declaration of the human rights of the rights of man and the citizens, all right, of France. The declaration of this human rights and its citizens, right? And so Thomas Jefferson actually helped write this declaration. The difference between the Declaration of the United States of America and the Declaration of France under Alexander was there's no mention of God in France's declaration, and God is centric in America's declaration. And this is why when you put a people of God into a godless society, and you begin to share certain principles without the root system, that they will take these principles, which are good, they're good, but they will put them, they will cultivate them in a society without morals, and all of God's principles are rooted in morals. So to utilize them outside of the realm of morality is disastrous. And we have seen it over and over again in human history.
Mm-hmm. Well, when Napoleon made that declaration of
But did I say Alexander the Great versus Napoleon? I meant Napoleon, folks. I apologize. I totally meant Napoleon.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Thank you, Leah. Sorry, well, you guys are all historians out there going, geez, what, Alexander the Great? That was way earlier. Okay.
When Napoleon did this, okay, I mean, he broke down Jewish society. Up until that time, either you were Jewish or you were not, and you lived within the ghetto or you did not. But there were no branches of Judaism. Everyone was observed the traditional, or you left. You weren't part of it. And it was only after that came about that you began to have the battles between Orthodox and Reform and Reconstructionists and Conservative and all those splits where supposedly you could practice different kinds of Judaism and still call yourself a Jew. Until that time, there was one Judaism. We were all one.
Video, what a great point. And also, until that time, there was no assimilation with the Christian community.
That's right.
And so now, what we're starting to see in France and in Germany is the only way you can get into political office or in governmental space and into more important positions and jobs was to convert to Christianity.
Yeah.
And once again, and so somebody may question something I said earlier about taking the Torah value system, right, and streams of principles and putting them outside of the faith, right, outside and into the world. And you might say, yeah, but Europe was Christian. Europe was Christian. So what's wrong with putting the Torah principles out into Europe? Christianity, remember, rejected every principle and foundational truth of the Torah. It had written its own Torah. It had written its own book called the New Testament. Mm-hmm. And so we've got a problem here, folks, because Judaism or the Jewish life was founded on the foundational truths of God. And Christianity cut itself off from those.
Yes.
So when you try to put those principles into another religion that has cut you off, that also cultivates anti-Semitism, because they will reject those principles because they believe they're superior, that we now have the truth, and what you have, we don't need. So you've got some serious dynamics going on in Europe when this emancipation enlightenment starts to unfold, but this is, you're correct. The collapse of the Jewish, the single-minded Jewish world definitely began at the Enlightenment Emancipation, which takes us back to what I want to say with Rabbi Sachs. Excellent insight there. Okay, Parshat Bo. This is the Parsha. This week we're in Beshalach, but last week we were in Bo. And this Parsha was, let me just give you a little background of what it was. It was the last three plagues. The last one being the death angel that came and killed every firstborn of the Egyptian nation. All right, everyone that was firstborn in Egypt died, no matter where you were in the caste system. They died, including the cattle, all of that. And then right after that, all right, was time. This is where the Passover was established. Everyone who had the blood of the lamb, their household lamb on the doorposts, whether it was outside or inside, God passed over them. And then all the Jews were given the mandate by Pharaoh, get out of here, get out. We want you out. So this is what's happening. And now Moses is going to have to lead 600,000 men, plus the women, plus the children. So we're clocking somewhere around 2 million people right here, between around 1,800,000 to 2 million, because you also have the stranger and you have the Egyptians. I mean, there's a lot of Egyptians that are saying, man, I wanted to go with that group of people, because if their God can do that, we want to go with them, right? So you're clocking a lot of people. Moses is going to stand, and he is now going to instruct this group of people. And Rabbi Sachs actually asks the question. He says, if you were the person that is going to lead the children of Israel out, right, after decades and hundreds of years of slavery and cohabitating in Egypt, all right, what would you say to them? What would you say, Leah, if you were going to be the one that is going to lead these people out? What would you say to this group?
No, thanks.
Now, you'd have to say that to God.
Well, he tried, but no, what he did was magnificent, because he didn't form a cult of people who were following him. His focus was always as an intermediary between Hashem and what Hashem wanted and the people, and how to develop their faith, how to develop that trust and faith in Hashem, but at the same time to coalesce them into...
Yes, but you're not answering my question, Leah. What would you say to them? You personally, what would you say to this group of people?
I told you I'd turn down the job because I'm not qualified.
It's above my pay bracket.
Yeah, it's above my level of competence. Now, I guess I would say, well, it's interesting, because Rabbi Friedman, Manis Friedman, said he posited in one of his presentations on YouTube that Moses and Paro actually had a dialogue going on before they left, because the plagues happened at different times over the period of a year, but they actually had a dialogue, because Paro's argument, which is sort of, it gets back to what we're talking about with the socialists. No, I got to explain this.
No explaining. You have to answer the question. We don't know. I don't want to hear what Manis Friedman says. I want to know. David, would you please answer the question? What would you say to the children of Israel if you are going to lead them out, or any group out of decades of slavery, or couple hundred years, and you're going to take them out because you have a place prepared for them that's so much better, and you have to motivate them. You're now the leader. You're taking them out. The time has come. We've come through the darkest of the hour. We're now on the looming of the light. Pharaoh said, go. And we're like, go, we're going to go. What would you say?
I just enjoy simplistic questions. Without circumlocution, I would say, look at all the events that have transpired up to this point. If you think this is good, wait until we get to the other side.
Excellent answer.
Oh, but the trick part of that question is,
there's no trick part here, Leah. There's no trick. Just
no, there is, because in fact they didn't leave until they were thrown out. They didn't.
Yes, but the point is, they're right now. Moses has his staff. He's like, they're all gathered. All 2 million are gathered. They see their leader up on the mount, and he's going to give them the final words. All right.
Follow me. Quite simply, follow me.
Okay.
But I think the army.
we did this at Shabbat dinner last week, and we had some pretty interesting answers, which is excellent. Both of those are excellent answers. So now I want to share with you what Rabbi Sachs says, because if you personally answered that question, you might have, well, we were all going through that little exercise. You might have said to yourself, well, I would have said, all right, we're going to a land of milk and honey. Or I would have said, we are becoming a free people today. All right. I would have said, let's hear what Rabbi Sachs says. He says, and in congruence, most people answer to that question, freedom. And he says, Abraham Lincoln, he also in his Gettysburg's address, he talks about a new nation conceived in liberty and looking forward to a new birth of freedom. He said others would have talked about the destination that lay ahead, the land flowing with milk and honey, and others would have warned the people of the dangers and the challenges that they would be facing in the wilderness, and their long walk to the promised land, However, he says, and all of these would have been great speeches of a great leader, guided by God, but Moses did none of these things. That is what made him a unique leader. If you examine the text in Parshat Bo, you will see that 3 times he reverts to the same theme: children, education, and the distant future. In Exodus 12:26, God tells him to tell the people this. And when your children ask you, in Exodus 13:8, and you shall explain to your child on that day. And Exodus 13:14, and when in time to come, the distant future, your child asks. It is one of the most counterintuitive acts in the history of leadership. Moses does not speak about today or tomorrow. He speaks about the distant future and the duty of parents to educate their children. He even hints, and this is ingrained in Jewish tradition, that we should encourage our children to ask questions so that the handing on of Jewish heritage would not be a matter of rote learning, but of active dialogue between parents and children. So Jews became the only people, and this is true, and this so fits with what we've been talking about with the Enlightenment and belief systems here. It says to predicate their very survival on education. And Leah, by the way, was an educator. She was a principal of a school in Canada. So here, the most sacred duty of parents was to teach their children. Passover itself became an ongoing seminar in the handing on of memory. Judaism became the religion whose heroes were teachers and whose passion was study and the life of the mind. The Mesopotamians built ziggurats. The Egyptians built pyramids. The Greeks built the Parthenon. The Romans built the Colosseum. The Jews built schools. That is why they alone, of all civilizations of the ancient world, are still alive and strong, still continuing their ancestors' vocation, their heritage intact and undiminished. Moses' insight was profound. He knew that you cannot change the world by externalities alone, or by, we might even want to say, government. What's the president doing right now? Help me with the word.
Signing executive orders, yeah.
That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. The president. You can't change the world by executive orders. Externalities. But monumental architecture, or you can't change it by architecture, armies, empires, or the use of force and power, executive orders. How many empires have come and gone while the human condition remains untransformed and unredeemed? There is only one way to change the world. Hear this, everybody listening today. This is the answer. There is only one way to change the world, and that is through education, for good or for bad. Children must be taught, everybody listen. Children must be taught the importance of justice, righteousness, kindness, and compassion. They must learn that freedom can only be sustained by the laws and habits of self-governance, self-restraint. They must be continually reminded of the lessons of history. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, because those who forget the bitterness of slavery eventually lose the commitment and courage to fight for freedom. And they must be empowered to ask, challenge, and argue. I want to just for 1 second stay right there. Religious institutions, families have to integrate into their system the empowerment of the people to ask, to challenge, and to argue belief systems. Because the failure to do so removes the important conversation from the family unit or from the religious belief system, institution, but I want to say from the religious moral institution is what I want to say. It removes the conversation from those places and puts it into society. It puts it into the public sphere. And once it becomes a part of the public sphere, it has the potential to create division and hatred and very perverse ways of thinking, because those questions, those challenges, those arguments were not discussed where they should have been. Children must be respected if they are to respect the values we wish to embrace. This is a lesson most cultures still have not learned after more than 3,000 years. So I think when we look at where the breakdown is, we have got to look once again all the way back to where we started today. And that is the family unit and the failure to teach our children.
Mm-hmm.
We're pausing right now so everybody can think about this. Shabbat Shalom on my side.
Where are we? Okay, Shabbat Shalom for me too. Yeah. And it gets back to what we were saying, this reset, where we are again understanding what values we want and need and doing something about it. I guess we're really blessed that we have a wonderful family living across the hall from us, and both parents work, but we hear them especially on Shabbat, and they're sitting there doing things together, singing songs, in the prayers, and even at other times the parents take turns and they're involved with their children. They play games with them, they read to them, they really are engaged with their children. And it's so lovely to see. That's the way it should be.
I
You
agree.
have children for a reason.
I think that, I really think that that's probably, when we look at how in the world are we going to navigate through such completely different ways of thinking from what we're seeing now under the Biden administration that we saw under the Trump administration. So interesting. I'm not actually pointing out whether you like Biden or Trump. It's not at all what I'm even talking about right now. Because what's happening, do you know the New York Times just came out? The New York Times has just came out with an article questioning Biden's overuse of executive power. Now, wasn't that what they were doing to Trump? They were trying to say he was overusing his executive power. Interesting. Watch these things, because now you have people saying, well, I didn't sign up for this. We can't change that, but we can come back to something so fundamental. Every parent, every child, every leader, every institution. And we can say, all right, let's just start taking a look at our values. Are they aligned with God? Are they aligned with the Torah? And let's start with the family. Let's come back and let's start teaching our children. Or continue. Many already do. Many do. But we need to be much more proactive in helping those that don't come to see the discrepancies to the place where we have to come back.
Yeah.
And I think Shabbat is one of the best one of the best places to start, because there is nothing, and I know, Leah, there is nothing that is so timeless as the Shabbat dinner with everybody gathered around talking about God and Torah and traditions that are timeless. They're eternal traditions. And wow.
There's only one thing that I would add to that. That's great. There's only one thing I would add. Family means extended family too. If you're an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent or, a cousin or whatever, we are beginning, I think, to realize that we miss those people at our special events, at our Pesach Seder, at our Tu B'Shvat Seder, at our Purim celebration, all those things. We've gone a whole year without being able to have those people present. And I really think that people understand now how important that is.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And also, let's just take it one step further. We have extended family. I haven't seen my family for 2 years now. I was supposed to go home last year in the spring. Of course, with COVID, that was not happening. So it's been 2 years. I've never gone 2 years without seeing my family. In fact, 1 year, I flew back and forth to Israel more times and saw them more than I would if I was living in Florida. But the point you just made, not only that, here in Israel, that we are mishpacha. We are family.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to also come back to that. What is our core values? Why, I was thinking today, we have such a new administration in America. And I have a personal thought about it. And nobody would like my thought. My thought goes back to, we're studying the book of Esther right now in every capacity. All right. We're coming 1 month away from Purim. But Mordecai never bowed to Haman.
Yeah.
I think we have to take a look at our core values, and there are going to be institutions, tech companies, leaders that their value system hates us like Haman.
Mm-hmm.
It's so antithetical to our value system that we can't bow to them. We can't engage with them. We cannot interact with them. We have to say, I know on one level, we're supposed to be kumbaya global politics. On another level, we have to say, I'm not bowing to you because you and I, we have you're out to kill us. And I think that is probably one of the most important aspects of what we were just talking about. If you don't teach your children, and if you don't cultivate the values that are intrinsic, for us as Jews, for us, it is the Torah. Even if you're secular, you don't have to be ultra Haredi, or you don't have to be, you can cultivate Torah values and principles. And in this country, you'll still call yourself an agnostic or even an atheist and cultivate those values. I see it all the time. My neighbor, he comes over he'll be going on and on about the value system of the Torah. He's unbelievably strong in it. And he'll say, and then I'm an agnostic. And I'm like, you ain't no agnostic. There's just a difference between your heart and your head. But we're joking about it, but this is our value system here. It is. And everything that wants to destroy that, we cannot bow to it.
No.
And in America, you've got 75 million people that voted for not Trump. They were voting for a specific value system that was rooted in the Constitution and in God.
Mm-hmm.
This administration does not have that value system.
Yeah.
You can't bow to that. And you can't praise it, you can't bow to it. Just like Mordecai, you cannot bow to that which wants to destroy you, or you will be sucked into their ideology faster than you can blink. That's what happened under Nazism.
Hitler said, you Jews brought conscience into the world. That's why he hated us.
Exactly. And how many Jews sat at his table because they bowed, and pretty soon they believed what he said, and they became part of the problem and not the solution. Ooh, that's like, whoo.
If you think about the word conscience is nothing more than understanding that there is a supreme authority to whom you answer, that you're not the be all end all.
That is so true. That is for another time. We'll break it up. We'll break it up here. It's now 3:00. So we've been on for about an hour and a half. But that's a real good conversation, because it's very interesting that conscience on a Torah level, conscience truly ties us into the Abrahamic covenant, and a lot of very, very vital developments that we saw on the global stage with the Abraham covenants, all right, these vital developments that we saw in bringing people together under these core values. So fascinating. I love that subject. So we got to pick that up later. All right, my friend. All right, to our friends, you want to say anything to our friends out in Facebook and YouTube world and where, out there?
I'll say Shabbat Shalom. And, I've said before that I do a Shabbat greeting card, which is absolutely free. And anyone who wants it sent to them can do so by signing the email list. I have to have that for permission. But you can also go to Facebook and you can see Inspire Israel. I posted it there this morning. And also on my Discover Israel with Leah Laker and Israel Fine Art and so on. But you will see this week's Parsha, Beshalah. I did a painting called Exodus, and it shows the journey of the Israelites into the mountains. They're going. They're on their way to Mount Horeb or Har Sinai to meet with Hashem and get the rules and regs for how to live your life. And they're former slaves, so they're walking as free people, but they're not fancy dress or anything like that. But take a look at it, because I also pulled a verse from the Parsha which Hashem said, "I will bring you to my mountain, and we will be a people, and I will be your God, and you will be my people." So that's really a lovely part of the Parsha this week, and I urge you to get it, have a look at it, and to read the Parsha. It's really long, but enjoy.
No, yeah, we didn't talk about this week's Parsha, but our conversation was much more relevant to last week's. But yes. And I agree. In fact, we'll be sending out that Shabbat information to all of our email lists. Yeah. So that's a beautiful, I love your work, Leah. I love it. I just love it.
I love doing it because it's always a story that goes with the Parsha or an event or something.
It is the story, and it's the story. So I love it. Yes, and that sounds wonderful. And we have a lot more that we'll be sharing in the near future. But on that note, I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And we will see you hopefully next week. We're working on our platform right now. We wanted to be on every week, but I had a little bit of a medical issue for the last, 6 weeks, 6+ weeks. So it's been a little bit of a challenge for us. So hopefully we'll be on in the very near future, and hopefully that'll be next week. If you enjoy, and I want to end in this,
don't forget, it's a conversation. Send your ideas and thoughts and suggestions.
It is. If you have a question you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. If you liked this, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you gleaned anything from it, let us know. You can like with the thumb, put a little heart. You can put a question. You can put a comment, but nothing nasty. Because if you nasty, we nasty back. In other words, we take you off. I hate this. I hate the bashing and the way that people treat each other. This is a respectful place. It's a respectful channel. We respect you. We respect your ideas. We respect your thoughts. We expect you to respect ours. So this is a place of respect. And so even if you disagree with us, you're free to write your questions and comments. If you disagree, just be respectful. So on that note, all right, I'm saying Shabbat Shalom to Leah and to all of our audience. Shabbat Shalom, and we love you, and we'll do our very best to be back next week. And in the meantime, start studying the Torah. I think that's a good idea. All right. And many of you, Leah and I will be on with the Enoem together. So if you're getting those emails, make sure, or you see something up on Facebook about Enoem together, you want to get to be a part of that. That is where we study together online, live. We are literally studying together. And right now, Rabbi Dov Berkowitz is leading us in a discussion called Walking in the Garden. We are going to really get into some pretty interesting mysteries and insights into the creation of man, the reasoning, and the purpose of men and women from the time of Adam. So I'm looking forward to that, Leah. How about you?
Yeah, it'll be exciting. Actually, I posted something. What really caught my attention was the word yom. And you think about how many different ways yum is used, yum and yamin.
Are you not talking about when they do yoga and they go om? You're not talking about that, folks. No.
It really leads to how Jews live on a different calendar and a different way of designating events and time, space, and time. And there's a lot to that. So I'm hoping that it will be addressed in the next meeting of Enoem.
Oh, I think that probably will. But that's a great question. You should send that to Rabbi.
I posted it in the comments on the site.
Oh, then it will be.
Yeah, you think about the calendar. We do Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, etc. And then there's Shabbat. And we do Yom Huledet and Yom Hazikaron. So but Yom in Ivrit can be a whole day or the time that starts actually in the evening before and goes to sunset. But there are all different ways that you can use that word. And I think that's fascinating.
Well, I think so too. In fact, it's very interesting because in my Hebrew classes, and for those of you that want to learn biblical Hebrew, we have a biblical Hebrew program that is very effective, and you are not being pushed. You are being guided to learn, and it cultivates not only a love for the language, but it really cultivates a much, much deeper understanding of Scripture. And so this week, in all of our classes, we have been dealing with the concept of zachar, of remembering. And so what you're saying about the day and these concepts that go together, and we talked at length about the night and the day. The day actually never begins day to night in the scriptures. It is night to day. It begins at the evening till the next day. So the concept of a day, I think, is extremely good conversation, Leah. So, okay, guys, we got to go. All right. We can go on like this forever with you. I mean, forever. As you can tell, we don't run out of things to talk about, and we are not scripted. There's no script. This is all fresh from the heart.
Raw.
And what?
Raw.
Yeah,
Raw.
it's raw. And it's really real. We're not droids. All right. Okay. I love you. We'll see you after Shabbos. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.